Good afternoon to all of you. I think it's a really honor for me to be present at this global conference on health humanities. And I would like to really thank our organizing team of the global conference, as well as Professor Dr. Saroj Jaisinghe, who is my close friend, and of course, my Professor Dr. Ravi Shankar, who has helped me to prepare this talk. Thank you so much. Now, if you really look at the topic is regulatory body, role of regulatory bodies in developing medical humanities. To begin with, I would like to really go way back to the Hippocrates. And I think during the classical period, doctors had a more holistic view of medicine than they do today. And when someone was sick, doctors understood the condition as relating to the whole person. And wherever the art of medicine is loved, there is love for the humanity. And this is what Hippocrates had said. And if you really see, Hippocrates had really was considered to be the father of the modern medicine, and he believed in the humoral medicine. And according to this model, good health reflected the four great humors: black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood. And I think if you become sick, this indicated your humors were imbalanced. And doctors suggested then various methods of prescribe a lifestyle change. So health was considered a balancing act at the time. Now, medical education in early modern Europe, and if you really look at some of these European and Greek and Latin schools, the philosophy, they appreciate classical texts in their original language. And 12th century students were taught grammar and rhetoric. Doctors throughout Europe studied humanities as an integral part of their medical training. Now, from individual people to the colleges, and then it came the some concepts like historical aspects, like the term humanities was first used by the historian George Sarton. And then this was the time when humanities curriculum was introduced in medical curricula over past 40 years in the Western world. And having medical humanities at medical school, people thought they nurture the positive attitude. And this is from my own article. Now, the next thing which came was the university early adoption, and this was post World War II. And many US and UK colleges adopted, and their universities adopted this early adoption. Like Pennsylvania, Texas, and in UK, the Wells and the all these started adopting this curriculum. And so the integration of medical humanities into curriculum of medical colleges worldwide has gained momentum over recent years. And it is a multidisciplinary field, though the definition of medical humanities and the curriculum of medical humanities is not uniform. There are many subjects like literature, philosophy, ethics, history have enriched the professions by fostering empathy. So from colleges, it came to universities. Then came to the topic of today, that is regulatory bodies and medical humanities. So regulatory bodies play a vital role in adoption of and implementation of medical humanities because they are a lot of government agencies, accrediting bodies, and professional associations. They establish standards and guidelines that shape the medical education. So let's see the involvement of these regulatory bodies ensures that there is an integration of medical humanities there. But what we see is it's not only uniform across different regions, but also aligns with the broader objectives of medical education and public health policies. But I think if you really see, this has not really happened. The uniformity has not happened because of the various regulatory bodies guidelines. It has been established in many hospitals, but it is still not uniform. So let's have a look at these kind of things. Now let's first take the United States. Now in the United States, LCME, as you know, the liaison committee, is the accrediting body for medical education programs. And LCME has emphasized that the importance of medical humanities in their accreditation standards. For example, LCME requires medical schools to include instruction in medical ethics, communication skills, and cultural competence. If you look at LCME document, This was one very nice paper from Academic Medicine 2003, which probably talked about so many medical colleges, including humanities, in their curriculum. Then there was a Stanford, there was definitely New York, Texas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and of course, many other colleges which had really given this kind of a perspective. In fact, MMC came out with this document of the fundamental role of arts and humanities in medical education. And this was the first time they brought about. I'm sure there are many issues of this, but they made this as the fundamental role of arts and humanities in medical. And then they gave examples of integrative approach. They call it as integrative approach of arts and humanities in medical. And they gave all about narrative medicine by Rita, the art of communication, then playing doctor, then my life, jazz, literature and medicine. And I think it was so interesting to read. And they recommended these integrative approaches and in this particular book. Now, when you go to the regulations in United Kingdom, I think the General Medical Council, GMC, they came out with a booklet called Outcomes for Graduates in 2018 document. Fairly, I mean, this was pre-COVID, and the expectations for newly qualified doctors, including competencies in areas such as ethics and law, communication skills, and professionalism. And this made a lot of impact, and many colleges started really using this. Look at this Imperial College paper of BMC in Education 2021. They studied the attitude of humanities in medical education. They emphasize the importance of empathy and qualitative insights. See, such are the impacts of regulatory bodies, including this in the colleges. Now, if you look at the Canada, the Committee of Accreditation of Canadian Medical Schools, I think they have in their own Standard 7 curricular content, which speaks about the various topics of humanity. And these are emphasize the importance of humanity in their accreditation standards, requiring medical schools to include this and cultural competence and communication skills. In fact, if you look at this particular paper, which also came in Academic Medicine 2003, Development of Medical Humanities Program, and this was somewhere in 90s, but today it is a very established fact. And in fact, they had three phases: phase one, phase two, phase three. And basically, phase one talks about encourage legitimized involvement of humanities. Phase two will normally focuses of incorporation of humanities into curriculum. And phase three will be developing a graduate program of humanities. So if you look at the European other countries, like say Germany, Berlin, it has already has these kind of modules which are there. Then, if you look at Australia, Australian Medical Council is a regulatory body, and they included accreditation standards in various skills. In fact, they published their standards for assessment of accreditation of primary medical program, and they added professionalism and leadership as the main thing. And if you really see, they have a lot of domains in which the humanity has been included. In fact, look at this curriculum of University of Melbourne, which got published a few years ago, and they have complete overview of science, creativity, and arts together for socially engaged approach for health well-being. Situated conceptually in humanities, exploring different ways of knowing and the lenses. A wonderful program. I think I was part. I had attended with some of their programs. Now, if you look at the medical humanities in various other countries, this was a nice paper for which reviewed three countries, and it says that mandatory formal programs and only one elective out of 14 schools. And something like Auckland had started it much in 90s, and students are taught in small groups. And again, so these were some of the things which were taken initially, and then again, it was taken by the regulatory bodies. So if you look at the regulations in Netherlands, the Dutch College of Medical Education accreditation is responsible for accrediting medical education programs, and they came out with this discover of history of health and medicine, and their framework includes criteria to medical humanities such as ethics, communication. And so these are some of the examples how regulatory bodies in develop. I'm sure I can go on talking much more on this. But by setting accreditation standards and requirements, these regulatory bodies have incentivize medical schools to prioritize the inclusion of medical humanities. Ultimately, you're looking for a humanistic care. Now, what is the situation in developing nations? This is something which you will also see, and I'll also talk about Eastern Europe and also. So, if you really look recently, I think before me there was a talk from Karma, and I think when we were trying to develop the curriculum for the Bhutan, I think we saw that we included, I think Dr. Saroj and we included a medical humanities in a big way in Bhutan curriculum because Bhutan has a lot of cultural background. Similarly, I've seen Nepal, Ravi Shankar has been working on this. Sri Lanka, I think Dr. Jaisinghe has been working, and I'm sure Malaysia, some just now some author talked about it. So these are the countries where already the programs are running. If you talk about India, India and medical humanities, if you really see the first bit before in 97 curriculum, there was some mention about attitude, but medical humanities was not the part as formal talk by the regulatory bodies. It was done in colleges, but there was no formal talk. So Vision 2015 was published in 2010-11. I think first started mentioning about it. And I think based on that, when I started creating our committee started creating the curriculum, we included yoga and sports in our part of MBBS curriculum. And to our surprise, when this was announced, I think Times of India, which is the main paper of the uh, India, I think it gave a news that MBBS students now will mat and bat, and there was a lot of discussion that time, and there was then for some time this was kept on hold. But fortunately, over a period of time, then later on it was accepted, and National Medical Commission has taken now proactive stance in integrating medical humanities. In fact, when competency-based undergraduate curriculum has been uh, released, actually NCR and NMC, that time it mandated the inclusion of medical humanities and subjects of impact. We prepared a booklet called as ATCOM, that is Attitude, Ethics, and Communication, and we emphasize the importance of all these aspects, ethical values, effective communication. In fact, going further, when we created modules on early exposure, we included in the Annexure 4 one humanities module. And based on this, there are some colleges, like say, I'm sure UCMS of Satyendra's has taken a much lead in the India about medical humanities cell. And in fact, it started in early 2010, much earlier maybe than that. We at KEM has started the medical humanities cell in 2016, and it is running very for last 8 years. Currently, there are variety of programs are conducted every month. And Dr. St. John's, I'm sure, doing. There are other institutes like the Pondicherry Institute and Tata Memorial Center also have medical humanities center, and slowly this is being picked up in India. Now, if you look at the South Korean, though it's a developed nation, all this is responsible for, if you see, Korean Institutes of Medical Education and Evaluation. In recent years, they have this Korean Institute of Medical Education is was for accrediting, and they gave strong emphasis on this. So, if they created this Ask 2019 section on 2.4, and that whole basic medical education standards, it has medical humanities, and it really talks about all that. Even I'm sure Malaysia, if you see Malaysian Qualification Agency, has implemented standards like that, but I'm sure there are many colleges in Malaya have responded. In fact, if you look at MQA, that is the Malaysian Accrediting Institute, it speaks about humanity, and there's a clinical training guideline which talks about code of ethics and all. If you look at Taiwan, Taiwan is again has Taiwan Medical Accreditation Council. It played a crucial role, and it revised its accreditation standards to include specific requirements for medical humanities education. And in fact, if you look at the papers which are come from Taiwan, there's a systematic review which talks about so many colleges and so many publications on humanities education and its influence on the outcomes of the project. And it also talks about the impact of interprofessional problem-based learning curriculum. So, if you realize there has been now inclusion by regulatory bodies, it has been adopted by many colleges. Now there are a lot of publications which are coming, And now people are looking for the students and everybody's impact on this. So there have been many programs in different phases now. There are there. Some have only lectures, some have 2 6 courses, and if you really see, it's still a very diverse kind of a situation. Now, Association for Medical Education in the Western Pacific region as a regional organization that promotes the advancement of medical education in Asia and Pacific region. Now, this has been actively advocated for the incorporation of medical humanities into medical care, and it is providing guidance and resources to medical colleges across the region. So, it conducts workshops, conferences, collaborative initiatives. So, these regional associations also are sharing best practices and they're encouraging adoption of medical humanities in these kind of programs. Now look at a country like Saudi Arabia. It has this M Heritage Program 2013, and this is a publication from somewhere in 2013 that introducing medical humanities in a medical curriculum in Saudi Arabia. And it was an experiment, they call it, but they integrated the attitude part of this. So I think there has been a set. So if you really look at the image in the developing nations, this is again from the chapter from Professor Ravishankar. There are so many universities and so many colleges have taken it. Some because of the regulatory bodies, some on their own. But if you look at their description, they are varied. I mean, they are from literature, visual arts, architecture to 2 8 weeks courses which are compulsory. Then broad concept of image is given to people, human values, Center for Medical Humanities, that is Royal Free College from United Kingdom. Then there are elective studies in Australia, lectures on history of medicine, so various aspects of humanity curriculum, either as a broader concept or an elective terms or in pockets, has been established in developing nations for many years now. If you look at the developing nations, if you really see, there are so many countries have been doing this. Maybe it's a Turkey, there's a human in medicine program, then there's a good medical course, students projects in this. Then Manipal College, I'm sure in Nepal had these humanities. And if you really see Sparshanam, it's a very interesting program from his medical college. So it is case scenarios, brainstorming sessions, role plays, debates, students' activities, paintings widely. So if you really see, there are so many programs which were being done, and these have been used in these countries. So I personally feel regulatory bodies play a very crucial role. And what do they really tell you? That these examples across illustrate crucial role that regulatory bodies play in driving implementation of medical management. It's across Asia. I'm sure in UK and USA it has done. Because see, regulatory bodies, one sentence or one of the inclusion of these words, I think that allows colleges and universities to develop these programs. And therefore, it is very essential that all the regulatory bodies must consider including medical humanities in their curriculum. And now, what the next to also do is to establish standards, providing guidelines, creating incentives. And these organizations, now many of the countries have done it, like I show you the US, then outcomes, and there are so many countries have come out with the booklets. Even India has come out with this. And these organizations have facilitated the integration of medical humanities. Although many colleges may not follow it, but I mean, some colleges may not follow it, but there are many who follow. And ultimately, they shape more well rounded and humanistic healthcare professionals. And that is what is the current need of our. So, in Globe, currently, if you look, diverse approaches are adopted by different regulatory bodies. And this is something which we should really look at it, that ranging from the first prescriptive mandates, some of the places they would say, okay, do 2 8 weeks courses, do this. And in fact, they could have a structured 4 year or 5 year program to more flexible guidelines, or there could be just mention and then allowing every college to have to allow institutions to tailor their curricula according to the local needs and resources. And then every college has its own culture which really picks up, and then they decide what is to be included and what is not to be. There are some barriers to the implementation of MH. First thing, there are resource constraints, people are resistant to change, and there are challenges of integrating courses into already packed medical school schedules. If you see, most of the medical school schedules in many countries I've seen are very packed and they are loaded with the knowledge and skills programs, and the role of advocacy and collaboration among stakeholders, including educators, policymakers, and medical students themselves, is important as a key to overcoming these obstacles. Now, today, what has happened, we as a group must really promote and advocate that there should be successful integration of medical humanities into medical education programs. Lastly, if you look at WFM, which I'm sure all of us really talk about, in their own new guidelines of 2020, if you really see the curricular content part, they have said what elements of humanity is included in curriculum. And this one small question can really see that the medical colleges start and the regulatory bodies start including. In fact, the content of other type, they also talk about humanities and art, which might include literature, drama. And WFME curriculums and basic guidelines are fairly followed in many of the regulatory bodies. So this kind of content may really be helpful in future to spread the medical humanities. So I would like to conclude saying that regulatory bodies are instrumental in shaping the landscape of medical education by advocating for and overseeing the integral part of the medical humanities. Their efforts not only help standardize and elevate the quality of medical care, but also contribute to the cultivation of compassionate, reflective, and well-rounded medical professionals. I think we need to really look towards future and continued support and innovation from these bodies. And more regulatory bodies, if they in, consider this as including them into their guidelines, and you will find these principles of humanities that would form the framework and fabric of the medical education globally. Thank you so much, and I would like to really thank Professor Jaisingh again. And if there are any clarifications and questions, I'm ready to answer. Thank you so much.